a government healthcare system. You could tell me that you don't want it in the US, but you can't tell me it doesn't work, because we've seen it work in every other major industrial system in different forms.
So what does that usually involve? What does universal healthcare involve?
So there's different varieties. In the UK, for instance, they have a national health service in which medical personnel and hospitals are run directly by the state. It's almost like a mini Soviet system, to be honest, but just for healthcare. And it works pretty well just for healthcare. Um, and I think it's one example of the way in which you could actually take the market. So I give you a vision of socialism that involves a lot of market, but I think there's certain spheres where you could remove the market from and still have an efficient system. In part because this is a area in which people don't have, obviously for cosmetic procedures, whatever, they have preferences. But for most routine things that people do in healthcare, they just need to see a doctor. They need to get diagnosed. Some of these systems have had trouble with wait lists for specialists or whatever. That's more of like an allocation problem of, if you want more specialists, you pay specialists more. Like this is just problems that could be solved by through the mechanisms of planning and government run healthcare. So that's kind of the most left wing that you could get is what the system in the United Kingdom. Beyond that, you have a system like Medicare for All, where you say, all right, most of the doctors, besides for public hospitals that already exist, are going to be privately employed by hospitals. Now, hospitals are going to be private. But instead of having all these different insurance carriers, we're just going to have one national insurance carrier that we're all going to pay into. That national insurance carrier is going to negotiate the price of healthcare with doctors, the price of drugs with pharmaceutical companies, and so on, to hopefully reduce prices and to implement a different little bit of planning into the system. Because if there's only one, big national insurance company, that company has a lot of weight and power. But you could still visit your same doctor, and there's still some. It's not as radical of a shift in that direction, and that's the dominant demand of Bernie Sanders and the left right now. There's 30 plus million people in the U.S. that would be insured that currently aren't insured. If we move to this system, there's a lot of other people that are underinsured or worried about how to pay co-pays or premiums involved. I think it would be a net benefit for the vast majority of the U.S. Population, even if it was offset with certain taxes, because we spend a lot of money out of pocket with health insurance, and it's a demand also that's widely popular. So for me, it's almost like if you're trying to build support for something like socialism, we were talking this lofty vision of socialism after capitalism, or what worker ownership, the means of production, would look like in practice, and so on. And by the way, you're one of the few interviewers who ever asked me any of the details. So it's good that I've been thinking of a rough sketch in my head for the last 16 years that I've been a socialist. But we have to start in the here and now. And if you can't convince people that the state should play a bigger role in their health insurance, and you can't convince Americans in a whole host of other sectors that they should be living in something closer to social democracy, how are you going to convince those people that there should be worker ownership of the means of production? Yeah. It's kind of a ridiculous leap if you don't have the credibility as the group of people organizing for universal health care, organizing for a $15 minimum wage, and able to get the goods. And also in practice, as we fight for these reforms, ordinary people will have a better sense, at least my hope is, of what it means to be involved with politics and what politics can do for their lives. It's positive. Because right now, when we talk about politics, it often just seems that we're talking about a very glib cultural conflict removed from the things that are important in our lives. Whereas in truth, I think politics can be a tool for us to make our lives better.
Yeah, and there's deep ideas here where in some sense universal healthcare and worker collectives are not so radically different, that there's just there's philosophical ideas to explore and accept. And also from my perspective, at least, maybe I'm wrong on this, but it seems like with a lot of things at the core of politics, the right answer from an alien perspective is not clear. Like everybody's very certain of what's the right answer. Everyone's certain universal healthcare is terrible, or in the case of universal healthcare, majority of people think it's a good idea, but I don't think anyone knows. Because I think that depends on cultural history, on the particular dynamics of a country, of a political system, on the dynamics of the economic system in this country, of the changing world. The 21st century is different than the 20th century. Maybe the failures of communism in the 20th century will not be repeated in the 21st century. Or the flip side of that, maybe capitalism will actually truly flourish or with the help of automation in the 21st century. Like, I don't think anyone knows. So like people like you are basically saying, like, arguing for ideas, and we'll have to explore those ideas together. Why do you think, if universal healthcare is popular, why don't we have universal healthcare in the United States?
Well, democracy is a great thing. Political democracy is wonderful. It came from the struggles of ordinary people to expand suffrage and so on. But the economic sphere, entrenched power in the economic sphere, bleeds into our political democracy. So I think there's a lot of people with a vested interest in not having universal healthcare. There's large industries with a vested interest in not having universal healthcare. They pay for ads, pay lobbyists, they influence government, and they have made it very difficult. So you can't get universal healthcare done without the bill. Even if you pass something and you're trying to make a change, like Obamacare was supposed to have a public option. Everybody's been running on a public option in the Democratic Party for 12, 13 years. Why don't we have a public option? People know that if people have the choice of buying into a government plan, they might just that might be the slow road to really having universal healthcare. So I think a lot of it's opposition.
Do you like that idea, the public option? Maybe you can, like, because isn't there complexities, like pre-existing conditions? So isn't a public option mean you can not have any insurance until you get into trouble, and then you can, if it covers pre-existing conditions, just start paying for insurance then? Therefore, young people don't pay for insurance. Isn't it better to go full in?
I don't support a public option, in part because I think if we allow politicians to just say, hey, I support a public option, well, it's just kind of a way to signal your support for universal health care, but give us nothing. And I think that's what we saw with Biden and a lot of other politicians that have supported public option. I think in practice, if a public option is defined in such a way that it just means you by default can just opt in to a public plan, and let's say hypothetically you don't even have to pay for it, then it's just a backdoor to universal healthcare really quickly. Because I think the vast majority of people who aren't currently covered, and also a lot of employers, to be honest, would probably drop their private coverage if they knew their employees can just get a public option and maybe would only provide supplemental insurance or whatever else. But I think the broad overarching point of all these demands is to say that socialists need to be really connected to the day-to-day struggles of people to just improve their lives. So if you're feeling like you're paying $400, $500 on the Obamacare market for health insurance, and that's hampering your ability to do what you want to do in your life, then maybe you would support a candidate who's for universal health care. If you feel like you're struggling to find work that you could afford to pay your rent with or whatever else, maybe you'll support a candidate committed to all sorts of mechanisms to reduce housing prices or increase your power as a tenant, and whatever else. So I think it's like these day-to-day concerns need to be connected to the more abstract and lofty vision of change. Otherwise, our politics just becomes like this fantasy world thing that's nice ideas to think about or debate, but really won't make much of a difference in people's lives.